voice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. We're broadcasting on Facebook Live on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. Yes, we've also had just horrible news. I've had family members pass away. I'm going this weekend away for a funeral of a beloved family member. And the horrible news, Tom Conrad, who was very popular, and I was going to tell you this story. He lost his, I was going to tell you the story of how I thought that he should have been the head coach at ETSU after Ed DeChillis left. But he lost his daughter today, or yesterday actually, 20. And so thoughts and prayers go out to Tom Conrad, who was Ed DeChillis' right-hand man. DeChillis, however, did not give him a strong recommendation when he left for Penn State. In fact, he left very controversially. I loved Ed DeChillis. Loved is too strong as word. I was very proud of being the first member in the local media way back in 96 on this very radio station to tell everybody this guy has it on the ball when, as I mentioned in my monologue, you still had people around here saying, oh, we should have George Pitts be the coach. And yeah, considering how well high school coaches always do when they're elevated right from, high school to college, especially when, did George Pitts ever have a guy who played 4 years at a major college? I mean, I know Naaman Johnson and all those guys went to Tennessee, but after a JUCO period of time. Did he ever have a guy who went 4 years to a major college? I know Nathaniel Bailey played 1 year at New Orleans. Demetric Stevens, I think, was after Pitts was there. I think that was when Mike Poe was there. But he may have, as a freshman played for Pitts. I've forgotten the years and all that. And, he went to Appalachian State, didn't even make it to this first practice. So, a lot of guys like that, too many to know. And you had these people that thought that should be the ETSU coach, which is absurd. And, I mean, to this day, when Steve Forbes was hired, you had people calling up talk shows saying they should look at the 69-year-old George Pitts, who, by the way, is now at King and just became King's all-time winningest college basketball coach. That's wonderful. That's D2. And even he had to spend there many years, and so on. And he was also hired by a former high school coach who had been the athletic director who lost a lot of money at King, to be brutally honest with you. Anyway, wanted to tell the story before he went on. Tom Conrad, like I said, he wanted the job in 2003. I thought, and I pushed on the internet, and I think I wrote a column in Sports Talk, although it's been a long time. I know that I was thinking that would probably be the best person for them to hire at the time. Conrad went on to be a scout for the Orlando Magic. And the reason I felt that is, at the time, there was a turnkey team to an NCAA tournament berth with Gerald Fields, Zakiwa Dude, and certainly under Murray Bartow. ETSU went back to the NCAAs the next year, almost beat Cincinnati, another boneheaded move by Tim Smith at the end, as he had made against Wake Forest the year before. Now, what we had was, instead of just, giving the reins to the former assistant, and a man that had taken Charleston Southern to the NCAAs as a coach before. He had been a former head coach. So someone with this kind of an experience, instead they went with Murray Bartow. Wasn't a bad coach. He went to 3 NCAAs. But yes, we now have Maria True joining us here.
Good afternoon.
Oh my goodness. Here we are. How are you doing here? And he always livens up you become the Robin Quivers of the of Tri-City Sports now, I believe.
Oh, great.
And all that. Yes.
I'll take it.
You didn't like my ranting against all the convenience stores that didn't sponsor with us? And I'm telling you, Quick Stop Market is the only place that has working gas stations.
Go to Quick Stop Market.
That's what I'm saying.
That's all you have to say.
Yes. You go to 4 different gas stations, and none of them have.
Do it again!
A 5th wants to, on a $5 purchase, frees up $91 on your card. Anyway, here's the next thing I'm ranting and raving about. And yeah, I mean, I've always wondered what kind of a job, though, before I come to Murray Bartow, became the coach, 12 years. Second longest tenure in ETSU history after Madison Brooks, by the way. But I've always wondered what kind of a job Tom Conrad could have done. And especially because he had the experience, as did Murray Bartow for that matter, of taking a team, the Bucks actually, it's Charleston Southern Buccaneers, to the NCAA tournament early in his career. It would have been something of a comfortable fit at the time. It does not appear right now, and I have said this many times, and that's reports that just, common sense would tell you that if ETSU has not hired someone on their current staff to be the head coach, they probably aren't going to do so now. What I know, and I've got this from a good source, is that Scott Carter, he's sort of been out of communication 2 days. He's been traveling, so he's not even in Johnson City looking at coaches. Randy Sanders that's the report that's out there. The question is, would he take the pay cut? It's reported that he was making approximately $500,000 a year at Florida State. That's actually low for an offensive coordinator to make. So I'm somewhat surprised in that regard that he would be someone that they would look at, because I would think that he would be out of their league. However, remember, Steve Forbes is slated to make more than $400,000 a year. I think it's $425,000 in the final year of his contract. And one would think that at the end of that contract, which I believe it extends into the early 2020s, the early 20s, okay, it extends into, I would believe that if that's what ETSU is going to pay a basketball coach, wouldn't it stand to reason that they'd also dish out the same for a football coach? Carl Torbush made a $240,000 base. It's important to remember when you're looking at assistants. A Donnie Abraham, for instance, makes $220,000 base at Illinois. Something to think about there. But, yeah, I know a lot of people would say, I know, why don't we, wouldn't an FCS job head coach be comparable to an FBS coordinator position? Possibly, but it's just, you're never going to get a guy like Matt Canada at LSU, even though he interviewed for the Rice job. Why? He makes more than $1 million. ETSU just can't pay that. Sanders from Morristown, of course, he was at Tennessee for many years and all this. You would think, okay, I need a job, coming back. I do wonder about people who may be taking a pay cut. But yeah, would ETSU be paying $500,000 a year, and could they afford to do that for a new coach? They may have to. Now, the other report, and it's just internet rumor, so I don't know whether to actually believe this or not, but is that Sanders is talking about his own staff coming with him. And I'm thinking, what is he going to do? Take the old Florida State staff? Because Willie Taggart ain't going to keep too many of them, if any. And then, ETSU can't pay what Florida State does. Who is he bringing on with the staff? That might actually, if that is true, and by the way, be very skeptical of that. As I say, that doesn't sound true to me. Some of you read on the internet, so it's got to be true, right? I don't know if I believe that or not. But if there is any point to it, that might actually hurt Sanders in getting the job. I mean, oh yeah, I'll bring in all these great coaches, and then the bean counters start saying, we're not Florida State. We can't do that. We have these other sports to fund, and, we're not selling that many tickets. On the other hand, you bring somebody like that in, a Sanders, if that is what you would bring in, I'll throw this out. Could ETSU be looking to go FBS? They'd have to build onto the stadium, and that's why I'd say no, because we talked to Scott Carter, and I asked him about the visitors' sideline, where fans are just roasting. Hey, you're going to put a deck up there for some shade for the fans. Geez, that's not in our plans. Well, if that's not in our plans, then you wouldn't think that adding on the 8,000 seats minimum that you would have to go to the FBS level would also be a plan. Just saying. All right, Tri-City Sports now. I wanted to get into, you know that I say this, and, just the way we began the show, talking about the mentality of the media around here. Do they look at I've always thought the differences of perception, just like I said, all this praise for a 4-win coach, Carl Torbush. Meanwhile, another 4-win coach, Butch Jones, they'd string him up if they could. You look at ETSU a little bit differently than you do at Tennessee. We don't have to say a little bit, do we? And I'm not sure if that is practical to do so. Oh, yes, I realize one's FBS and one is FCS, but in terms of expectations, maybe the expectations for Tennessee a little too high, a little unrealistic, and because of that, making it a little bit more difficult to win, and maybe the expectations at ETSU a little too low, and so that's why it's everything that they can do to not give Carl Torbush a going-away parade after a 4-7 season, in which 2 of his assistants were arrested and lost their jobs. And then you have people that want to come back to me and say, APR, APR, APR. I'm not knocking the APR of ETSU, but it's just, well, Kennesaw State's APR isn't as good as ETSU's. How many coaches they get arrested? So let me ask you that. We're going to play that game. That's what Bill Parcells said. You are what your record is. All right. But with that, there's a story, and I really want to get to the Sports Illustrated. You haven't picked it up. You haven't gone online and read it. I want you to do this. Homer, sweet Homer. What about the way sports is covered in the media, both around here and abroad? Abroad? Well, throughout the country. Are we getting away from the honesty that I was always brought up to broadcast with, and having more and more homers? Well, I've banned some reporters from appearing on the show because I thought they were such insane homers that I just didn't want to hear from them again. They weren't even telling the truth. They were giving unfactual information. But is that the way we're going? We'll talk about it. Tri-City Sports Now.
Firestone Destination Tires take